Ukrainian soldiers celebrate recapturing 20 towns and villages from Russian troops in the space of 24 hours. Ukraine says it's retaken as many as 20 towns and villages in the east of the country in the space of the last 24 hours, with Russian troops in retreat. Russia has hit back overnight with missile strikes on the city of Kharkiv, causing blackouts. But President Putin's tactics have been criticised by one of the leading military commanders fighting on the ground. Officially, the Kremlin says its forces are regrouping, not retreating. Now, this was a situation just a week ago with Russia still in control of much of the east of the country. But the latest mapping in the last 24 hours shows significant gains to the east and as far south as Izium. That's the Ukrainian forces there in purple. From the capital, Kyiv, our Ukraine correspondent James Waterhouse sent this report.
Russian ambitions once again abandoned. Its pro-war symbol, a familiar calling card. Shells used to flatten towns, still in their boxes. Moscow is calling this a regrouping, but all signs point to a hasty retreat. Kyiv is claiming to have taken back almost all of the Kharkiv region. Even Russian officials admit to being outnumbered by 8-1 here.
Izium був, є і буде Україна.
Izium was, is, and always will be Ukraine, says this soldier. This is territory which Russia fought hard to take, lost in the space of days.
We've been waiting for them almost half a year, and we are so happy.
Whenever Russia is frustrated in this war, it responds. This time accused of striking civilian targets like this power station, leaving people in Kharkiv stuck on the metro from the resulting loss of power. Ukraine is pushing on more than one front. That has risks, but it's enough to worry one of Putin's biggest allies, Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov. If changes are not made, he said in an online post, I will be forced to go to the country's leadership. This is the most significant Russian withdrawal since they pulled out from Kyiv in late March. The human cost for both countries remains huge, and on whether it's a price worth paying, the majority of Ukrainians feel there is no choice. This is about survival, and the idea of making any concessions to Russia remains unfathomable. The Kremlin anticipated taking Ukraine in a matter of days. 201 of them later, it's going backwards. James Waterhouse, BBC News in Kyiv.
Well, let's talk to our Russia editor, Steve Rosenberg, who's in Moscow. Steve, this looks like a significant setback for Russia. What's been the reaction there?
Yeah, well, this is what the Kremlin has been saying today. It says that what it calls the special military operation in Ukraine will continue until all its objectives are met. Now, the authorities here are not calling what happened in northeastern Ukraine a retreat. Russian troops, they say, are regrouping, but not everyone here, far from it, believes that. A lot of pro-Russian social media groups and telegram channels have accused the Russian Defense Ministry of making big mistakes on the battlefield. Now, what about Vladimir Putin? Well, it strikes me that for more than 20 years amongst the Russian elite, he's had this reputation of being a winner, of someone who always managed to extricate himself from difficulties and come out on top. But that changed, I think, on February the 24th, when he ordered the invasion of Ukraine. He failed to secure the swift victory he wanted. Russia has got bogged down in Ukraine, and as we've been hearing, has actually been losing territory that it seized. And it seems to me that when an authoritarian leader starts to lose that aura of invincibility, that is potentially a problem for him.
Steve in Moscow, thank you. Well, let's talk now to our diplomatic correspondent, James Landau. I mean, James, how significant is this? The fear has to be, I imagine, that Russia could hit back doubly hard?
Well, yes, but let's not get there immediately. The first point is Ukraine is continuing to surprise us. It is showing now that it can not just do defence, it can do offence. It's learning and showing it can do this by managing to tie together infantry, tanks, long-range missiles, intelligence, all of those things coming together to coordinate in a way that we haven't seen before. What's happened here is something of a diversion. Essentially, they made a big song and dance about a big offensive in the south, in the Kherson region. They started an offensive there, all the while building up forces in the north. Clearly, Russian military intelligence didn't manage to spot it, and on they've gone in. Now, that shows Ukraine can do this in a way that we didn't think it could before. Secondly, it's also making a political point. It's telling the rest of the world, look, we think we can win this war. So all of those arguments that you hear in the West saying, oh, should the West carry on giving its support because maybe it'll be supporting a stalemate? Well, there isn't a stalemate at the moment.